Denny Hamlin just won $1 million. He stood in victory lane, check in hand, cameras rolling. And when a reporter asked him if he would still rather have had a real points race at Dover instead, he didn't hesitate for even a second. Oh yeah, no doubt. That is the story of the 2026 NASCAR All-Star Race. The man who won the biggest prize of the weekend didn't even want the weekend to exist the way it did. And he wasn't alone. From the moment teams unloaded their haulers at Dover Motor Speedway, something felt off. Drivers felt it. Fans felt it. And by the time the checkered flag dropped on May 17th, 2026, nearly everyone involved had something critical to say about what NASCAR put together in Dover. The NASCAR All-Star Race is now 42 years old. For most of that history, it meant something specific. It was held at Charlotte Motor Speedway on a Saturday night in NASCAR's own backyard. There were driver introductions with blaring music and fireworks. The fans were right next to the stage. Everyone, drivers, fans, media, knew they were watching something special. It wasn't a points race. There was no championship on the line, but it had an identity, a $1 million prize, bragging rights, and an atmosphere that told you this was not just another Sunday afternoon. That identity has been slowly disappearing. The race moved from Charlotte to Bristol in 2020, then to Texas, then to North Wilkesboro from 2023 through 2025. North Wilkesboro gave it a brief boost, but even it may have been more about the nostalgia of a beloved old track returning to the schedule than about the race itself being truly special. In 2026, NASCAR moved the All-Star Race to Dover Motor Speedway in Delaware for the first time in the track's 58-year history. And in the same move, Dover lost its regular points race entirely. A track that had hosted 2 major Cup Series races per year was now left with just this one exhibition. A lot of people in the NASCAR community felt that was a step backward for Dover, and the frustration around that decision set the tone before a single car hit the track. On top of the venue change, NASCAR introduced a brand new race form. All 36 cars would start together. The first 2 segments were each 75 laps long. After segment 1, the top 26 finishers were inverted, meaning the fastest driver from that segment had to restart at the back, and the slowest of the top 26 would inherit the front of the grid. Cars from 27th through 36th kept their exact running positions. To advance to the final 200-lap segment, the money round, 19 drivers were automatically locked in, having already qualified by winning Cup races in 2025 or 2026, being past All-Star winners, or being former Cup champion. 6 more spots went to the drivers with the best combined average finish across the first 2 segments. And 1 final spot was awarded through an online fan vote, which went to Daniel Suarez. On paper, there is logic to the format. In practice, it created a catastrophic problem. Those 19 locked-in drivers had to compete in 150 laps of racing before they could even get to the segment that paid $1 million. Every lap they ran in segments 1 and 2 was a lap where they could wreck their car with no backup vehicle to lap. The format essentially asked the sport's best drivers to gamble their shot at $1 million on 2 throwaway segments they had no real reason to be competing hard in. As NASCAR wire service reporter Holly Kane noted, just finishing the 3rd and final phase of this race was essentially an accomplishment for many of the sport's best. Media Day on Friday made it clear the drivers were not buying into the Chase Elliott, voted the most popular driver in the Cup Series 8 consecutive times, was direct about how the weekend felt. It feels like a normal weekend. I would say this feels the least like an all-star weekend that we've ever had in my career, he said. It kind of reminds me of that fall Dover race more than anything. Bubba Wallace felt the same way. I woke up Monday, and I'm like, where are we racing at? Oh, it's Dover. It's All-Star, Wallace said. It doesn't feel like All-Star weekend. It just feels like another race weekend. I'm having to tell myself this weekend doesn't really matter. Then he added something that cut right to the heart of the issue. It's just blah. And I hate that. I hate that for our sport. I hate that for the fans. Even Hamlin, who would go on to win the whole thing, had doubts going in. If we're all going to be racing on Sunday, is it really that special? So I think it does take away a little bit. Surely it does. The drivers who were supposed to be the ambassadors of excitement for this event were openly questioning its purpose before the green flag ever dropped. That is not a foundation for a successful All-Star week. When the green flag finally dropped, the chaos arrived almost immediately. On just lap 2, Ryan Preece came down the banking in turn 1 and made contact with Todd Gilliland. What followed was a 9-car pileup that triggered a red flag, and set the tone for everything that Kyle Larson, a three-time All-Star Race winner and the reigning Cup Series champion, hit the wall hard in his number 5 Chevrolet. Ryan Blaney and Chase Elliott, both former All-Star winners and Cup champion, were also collected. Daniel Suarez, John Hunter Nemechek, Michael McDowell, and Cole Custer rounded out the day. Most dramatically, Preece's number 60 Ford made heavy contact with the outside wall, and the rear end of his car erupted in Preece climbed out through the window, netting unharmed, and was quickly released from the infield care center. "I'm fine. I seem to take big hits," Preece said. "I don't know what happened, but if it was anything, it was probably just too close on my part to go into turn 1 and just got sideways. So if it was my fault, I'm sorry." He later accepted full blame in a social media post. Larson, always direct, surveyed the damage to his car and said, "It looks like number 5 Team Arts and Crafts right now. Try to make the most out of sucky day." The first segment didn't get better from there. With 14 laps remaining, Carson Hocevar suffered a flat right front tire and hit the wall, bringing out a caution. Denny Hamlin stayed out on old tires, while William Byron led a group of 17 cars down Pittsburgh Road for fresh rubber. Bubba Wallace stayed out and restarted second, passing Hamlin in turn 4 to take the lead. Then, with just 3 laps to go, another massive crash broke out on the front stretch. Riley Herbst got loose exiting turn 4 and received contact from Alex Bowman, triggering a second 9-car pileup that claimed Chase Elliott, Christopher Bell, Kyle Busch, Nemechek, Zane Smith, Chris Buescher, and Noah Gragson. The segment ended under yellow, with Wallace taking the win. Elliott, who had now been collected in 2 separate crashes in the same segment, summed it up with exhausted honesty. "It was pretty wild. I knew better. I saw it getting crazy. I should have bailed. By the time segment 2 even started, more than 20 cars had already sustained damage." The second 75-lap segment brought yet another major incident. On just the 6th lap, Ross Chastain and Brad Keselowski got sideways exiting turn 2, and Bubba Wallace was swept directly into the crash. All 3 cars went to the garage. Chastain's number 1 Trackhouse Racing Chevrolet had its left front tire bent completely out of alignment, and the team confirmed shortly after that his race was over. "Hey Brandon, we're done, buddy," Chastain told his spotter over the radio. Here is where the format problem became impossible to ignore. Chase Elliott and Ross Chastain had both been locked into the final segment before the race even started. They had earned their spots, but their cars were wrecked beyond what the teams could repair, and backup cars were not allowed. So neither driver got to race for the $1 million prize. In fact, NASCAR's official record does not even list them competing in the race. Tyler Reddick settled down and won segment 2, but by that point, the cumulative damage to the field was staggering. Kyle Larson, Ryan Blaney, Kyle Busch, Brad Keselowski, Bubba Wallace, and Christopher Bell all started the final segment in cars that had been badly damaged and were significantly slower than the rest. Larson would eventually retire from the race entirely with 60 laps remaining due to a power steering failure. Denny Hamlin started the 200-lap finale from pole position, having posted the best combined average finish across the first 2 segments. Chase Briscoe, his Joe Gibbs racing teammate, lined up alongside him on the front row. Remarkable considering Briscoe had knocked his own car into the wall during Saturday practice, and his team had essentially rebuilt the entire machine over. On the final restart with 52 laps remaining, Briscoe got the better of Hamlin off the line and took the lead. But Hamlin was patient. His car was simply faster on long run, and he methodically worked his way back to Briscoe's bumper. With 29 laps to go, Hamlin made the pass on the front stretch and never looked back. "I just knew the game changer for us was long runs and obviously the ability to pass when we were behind someone," Hamlin said after the race. He crossed the finish line 0.887 seconds ahead of Briscoe to claim his second career All-Star Race victory, having also won from the pole at Charlotte in 2015. It was also his 3rd consecutive win at Dover, following points race victories in 2024 and 2025. At 45 years old, Hamlin became the 2nd oldest All-Star Race winner in NASCAR history, behind only Mark Martin, who was 46 when he won in 2005. Eric Jones and the number 43 Legacy Motor Club Toyota finished 3rd, completing an all-Toyota top 3. Austin Dillon came home 4th, and 19-year-old rookie Connor Zilisch delivered an impressive 5th-place run for Trackhouse Racing despite receiving a pit road penalty mid-race that sent him to the back. Zilish had shown genuine speed all afternoon. One final piece of confusion arrived after the checkered flag. The post-race results were changed, with Noah Gragson and Brad Keselowski swapping 10th and 11th place. It changed nothing in terms of standings. There were no points at stake, but it was one more small symbol of a disorganized day. In his post-race press conference, Hamlin was gracious but unambiguous. When a reporter noted that the final segment had felt like a completely separate race, Hamlin shot back, "I think we should know when the All-Star Race starts. Let's start there first." His solution was straightforward. First thing is let's give Dover their points race back, and then let's figure out where we're going to go and then figure out the format. He also said the race should be run at night rather than in the afternoon heat, and acknowledged the difficulty of the situation with some fairness. "I'm not trying to throw mud. They did as good as they possibly could given where they put this track in the schedule." As for the $1 million, Hamlin smiled and said he would probably give it to Mama, a particularly meaningful gesture given that he lost his father in December 2025 in a fire that destroyed his Briscoe, battling a stomach bug all weekend on top of everything else, was proud of his team's work rebuilding the car, but echoed Hamlin's sentiment. "Wish it were a points race because we definitely need the points." But it was a hard-fought day. The deeper problem here goes beyond one bad week. The All-Star Race has been drifting for years. The constant venue changes, Charlotte, Bristol, Texas, North Wilkesboro, Dover, have stripped it of any consistent identity. The elimination of the Open, the qualifying race that gave non-eligible drivers a shot to race their way into the main, removed what many considered the most exciting part of the entire week. The race was scheduled at 1 p.m. Eastern Time on a Sunday, running directly against the PGA Championship. One fan captured the frustration in a line that circulated widely after the race. What happened at Dover was not an all-star race. It was an all-charter race. When every Cup Series driver is eligible, the exclusivity that once made the event feel earned disappears entirely. Christopher Bell, asked about the vibe problem, agreed without hesitation. "Absolutely. That's a good way to put it for sure." The format also fundamentally punished the sport's best competitors. Drivers who had earned their locked-in status through winning races spent 150 laps risking their equipment for nothing, and two of them, Elliott and Chastain, paid the price by missing the race they had already qualified. The conversation coming out of Dover points in several clear directions. Returning to Charlotte Motor Speedway is the most frequently discussed option, particularly with the 35th anniversary of One Hot Night approaching in 2027. A permanent home track would give the event a consistent identity rather than reinventing itself every year. Running the race on a Saturday night rather than a Sunday afternoon would restore the atmosphere that made it feel special. Bringing back the Open would restore competitive stakes and excitement to the preliminary portion of the weekend, and shortening the overall race distance. This was a 350-lap exhibition, would make it feel like the sharp, high-energy showcase it is supposed to be rather than a warm-up for the Coca-Cola 600 the following. Dover itself is not the villain in this story. The fans showed up. The Monster Mile delivered exciting, if chaotic, racing. But losing its points race in exchange for a single exhibition that the drivers themselves didn't feel good about is not a trade that works for the track long. NASCAR reassured fans after the race that the series would return to Dover, but the bigger structural questions remain very much unresolved. Denny Hamlin won $1 million on May 17, 2026. He drove a dominant race, avoided the carnage, and outdueled a worthy teammate. By every measurable standard, he should have been the happiest man in Delaware. Instead, he stood at the podium and told NASCAR, clearly and directly, that something about this event needs to change. When the winner is your most vocal critic, that is not a minor problem. That is the whole story. The Coca-Cola 600 at Charlotte Motor Speedway is next, the longest race of the entire season, on May 24th. And in a fitting twist, the defending winner of that race is Ross Chastain, the same driver who earned his spot in the All-Star Race final and never got to use.